You've been building your AI system for months, prompts and workflows, agents running tasks, things shipping. But at some point, you realize something uncomfortable, which is that you couldn't fully explain what your system was doing anymore. Not because anything broke, because the system kept growing, and it's growing too fast. 3 months ago, I audited every AI prompt running across my business. I found 23 active prompts embedded in workflows, agent systems, and content pipelines. I could only explain with confidence what 9 of them did. 9, less than 40%. The other 14, they were producing outputs I couldn't fully understand, or predict, or rely on. And I couldn't safely modify these without risking breaking something else. I feel that although my AI system was working, I didn't feel that I understand it anymore. If you're an AI native founder building with agents, and if you want to be one, this video is for you. I will cover 3 things I learned. First, what is prompt debt and why is it invisible until it becomes a crisis? Second, the 3 levels of how AI native founders accumulate it and what's actually happening at each stage. Third, once you understand this, how does the way you build with AI change? Let's get into it. There's a name for what accumulates when this goes unmanaged. It's called prompt debt. Prompt debt is what forms when prompts become embedded across your workflows without ownership, versioning, or testing. Here's an analogy. Imagine the electrical wiring in a house extended 3 times over 30 years. The original wiring was clean. The electrician who laid it could explain every circuit in 20 minutes. Then the first extension, different electrician. He tied in where it was convenient. It worked. Second extension, third electrician. More ties, more workarounds. Still worked. Third extension, fourth electrician. He looked at the panel and said quietly, "Whoever did this didn't follow code." But the lights were on, so he worked around it too. Now there's a mysterious short somewhere in the house. Lights flicker occasionally. Nobody knows where it is. Every electrician says the same thing. This is going to take a while to untangle. Just like that, the house keeps working, most of the time, until it doesn't. Prompts are the wiring of your AI system. They encode logic. They carry decisions. They determine behavior in ways not visible from the outside. Prompt debt looks harmless while the lights are on. It becomes a crisis when you can no longer explain your own system's behavior. And like electrical work, nobody questions them while they're functioning, until something sparks. The 3 traps I'm about to describe are the 3 stages of how prompt debt forms. For any AI native founder running agents, this is the silent accumulation no one warns you about. Level 1, the beginner trap, treating prompts like notes instead of artifacts. This is the trap aspiring founders building their first AI native business hit the hardest. Because the AI is producing outputs, everything feels like it's working. The debt is invisible until you need to change something. The most common scenario looks like this. You find a prompt that works. It's brilliant. You copy it into a Notion doc, a Google Doc, a Slack message to yourself. Or you just leave it in the chat window. 2 weeks later, you're building something new. You remember you had a good prompt for this. You can't find it. You rewrite it from scratch, slightly different from the one before. Now you have 2 versions. You don't know which is better. You're not sure which one your agent is using. You have no way to compare them systematically. This is the beginning of prompt sprawl. Here's what's actually happening. Prompts are not configuration settings you set once. They're living artifacts that change your system's behavior every time they're modified. When you treat them as notes, you lose the audit trail. You can't answer the question, why did the AI do this? Because you don't know which prompt version ran, or what was in it at the time, and when that question gets asked. By a user, or a client, or yourself at 11 p.m. The only honest answer is, I don't know. The fix is straightforward, but it requires a mindset shift. If you want to build business with AI, you cannot afford to treat prompts casually. You need to start treating prompts the way you treat code. Every prompt lives in a file, not a chat window. Every change gets a version number. Every version gets a one-line note. What changed and why? If you're running agentic workflows, a GitHub repo with a folder called /prompts and a simple naming convention gets you 80% of the way there. The discipline matters more than the tool. Level 2, the intermediate trap. Building elaborate prompts nobody can maintain. Once founders understand that prompts need to be managed, they often overcorrect in a different direction. The solopreneur AI setup I see most often at this stage is one monolithic system prompt where everything lives together. They build massive, comprehensive system prompts, pages long, covering every edge case, 12 sections with headers and subheaders and numbered lists. Then 3 months later, nobody can tell you with confidence what's actually in there, including the person who wrote it. 2 things are happening that aren't immediately visible. First, long prompts accumulate internal contradictions. Section 3 says one thing. Section 9 says something that conflicts with it. The model is left to resolve the contradiction on its own. And it doesn't always resolve it the way you intended. Second, long prompts are expensive to update. When the product changes, the prompt needs to change with it. But updating a 3,000-word document without breaking existing behavior requires testing every section against every edge case. Most teams don't do this, so they just append new instructions to the bottom. The prompt grows, the contradictions multiply, the behavior becomes unpredictable. There's a name for this failure mode in the research: Prompt smells, the AI equivalent of code smells. Structural patterns in prompts that indicate poor design and predict future failures. Hard-coded values, vague instructions, redundant sections, implicit assumptions. Each one is a latent bug. The fix is the same principle good software engineers apply. Modular design. Instead of one monolithic system prompt, break it into components. A task module, an output format module, a constraints module. Each one is short, specific, and independently testable. When the product changes, you update the relevant module. You don't touch the others. And here's the finding that surprises most founders. Shorter, more constrained prompts consistently outperform longer, more elaborate ones. Constraints help models focus. Length creates noise. The model that gets 3 precise instructions will outperform the one that gets 30 vague ones. Less prompt, more precision. Level 3, the advanced trap, not testing when the model underneath changes. This is the trap that catches founders running agentic business systems at real scale. They've versioned their prompts. They've built modular prompt systems. Their agents perform reliably. Then an AI company releases a new model. Everyone's excited. They upgrade. 3 weeks later, a user reports that the tone has shifted. The outputs feel different. Some edge cases that used to work are now failing. Nobody knows which prompt caused it. Nobody ran tests before upgrading. Nobody thought they needed to. Here's what's happening. Prompts are not model agnostic. A prompt tuned for Claude 3.5 may not behave identically on Claude 4. A prompt built for GPT-4o may degrade on a successor. Models have different tendencies, different default behaviors, different sensitivities to praising. When you upgrade the model without running regression tests on your prompts, you're essentially shipping code to a new compiler without running the test suite. You're not upgrading your system. You're replacing a component your system was tuned to and hoping nothing breaks. This is how prompt debt turns into a production incident. The solution is to treat model upgrades exactly like dependency upgrades in software. Before you upgrade, create a benchmark set, 20 to 50 representative inputs covering your core use cases and your known edge cases. Run them against the current model, save the outputs as your baseline. After you upgrade, run the same inputs against the new model. Compare. Where outputs diverge, review. Decide if the change is an improvement or a regression. Update the prompt if needed. This is an eval framework. It doesn't need to be sophisticated. It needs to exist. Teams that do this ship model upgrades in a day. Teams that don't spend weeks debugging behavior, changes they can't explain. After hearing all of this, you might think the takeaway is build more rigorous prompt management processes. But here's the counterintuitive part. The problem isn't that founders are careless. It's that prompts don't look like code. They're written in natural language. They feel like communication. They feel like something you could change in 2 minutes with no consequences. That feeling is accurate at the beginning. It becomes dangerous at scale. Prompts may not compile, but they absolutely determine behavior. A prompt change is a system change. It should be treated with the same discipline as any other change to your core product logic. The best performing agentic business systems I've seen don't have the most sophisticated prompt management practices. They have the fewest prompts. AI native founders who escape prompt debt don't do it by managing their prompts better. They do it by asking one question: what would have to be true about my system for this prompt to become unnecessary? Sometimes the answer is a better knowledge document. Sometimes it's a structured data format. Sometimes it's a clearer task definition upstream. Here's the reframe I'd leave you with. Most founders think of prompt engineering as a skill. It is. But prompt management is a discipline. Skill gets you good outputs in a demo. Discipline is what makes your system reliable 6 months later when you're not watching it. Every production AI system has a prompt layer. The question is whether that layer is managed, or whether it's managing you. A system you can explain is a system you can optimize. And a system you can optimize is one that compounds toward revenue. That's what you're actually building toward. The founders who build with AI at scale see every prompt as a temporary fix, asking to be replaced by something permanent. Prompt engineering is how you start building. Knowing when to stop is how you scale. I mentioned at the start that I found 23 prompts. 14 I couldn't fully explain. That audit wasn't just uncomfortable, it was clarifying. I now have 11 prompts. I can tell you what every single one does, what changed and when, and what would happen if I removed it. The other 12 don't exist anymore. Not because I deleted them arbitrarily, because I went through each one and asked, what is this compensating for? And in most cases, I could build something underneath it that made it unnecessary. I didn't fix my prompt debt by managing it better. I fixed it by rewiring the house. Prompts aren't the product. They're the scaffolding you use while you're still figuring out what the product needs to know. The goal was never better prompts. The goal was always a system that doesn't need to ask. If this shifted something, subscribe. I'll see you in my next one.